Hello and welcome, one and all, to That Place in History. I'm your host, Mekhi Kirkwood, here with our other host.
It's
Thaddeus.
me, I'm back.
He's here, you can see him, he's all...
I know, I'm visible, I'm a physical being.
He's glowing, he's golden. He's golden.
I guess that's one way to describe my skin color, yeah.
I mean, the light shining on you is just so, it's just so perfect. It's just so perfect. Before we get, started, how are you doing today?
I am doing quite well. I am doing quite well.
That's good.
Yes, very exciting day in web today, so, yeah.
I'm sure you're just delighted that I dragged you from that very delightful day.
To be fair, things were slowing down. Everybody was leaving, and all the new people that I met are now gone, and now I want to see them again. They'll be back tomorrow.
They'll be back tomorrow. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. You'll be alright.
We are going to be in the Mediterranean seas, particularly, classical era and in ancient Tuscany.
Ancient Tuscany. Basically, if I were to geographically, denote it, right above Rome. A couple of city-states right above Rome.
Yeah, directly north of Rome. Again. Mm-hmm. Tuscany.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can sometimes you gotta say it.
Yeah. I suppose you gotta to clarify. Not everybody knows geography. Not everybody's the best with geography. You make a good point.
We get it. You're built different.
Yes, I am. Anyway, went from basically extended from about Rome all the way up to the Alps. Mm-hmm. And at its greatest extent, I do mean Rome. Rome was part of the Etruscan civilization.
Yeah.
And found it. Rome existed.
Rome was just there. Rome was how do I describe it?
Rome was a backwater.
Rome was basically
the sticks.
Rome was
to the Etruscan Empire what
it's like
Glasgow
Amelia.
is to Virginia. And I don't mean the city in Scotland.
I was gonna say Amelia in Virginia.
You see, that's one place I haven't heard of that place, but
exactly.
That's exactly. Have you heard of Glasgow, Virginia?
I also haven't heard of Glasgow,
Exactly.
Virginia.
It's a small, basically, in short, Rome at that time and within the Etruscan civilization was a fairly small, town, city-ish kind of thing that nobody's really heard of outside of it.
Tiny little no-name town.
Exactly.
It was in the way the story ends up, it's kind of crazy.
Oh, it's funny.
Looking back, it's kind of weird that there's this ancient people that saw Rome as nothing but a peon. Just a little footnote in history
Exactly. Just they're there.
Yeah.
I guess.
And with how our society has been very influenced by Greco-Roman things.
Exactly.
It's kind of crazy that it all started as this little tiny dot. But we're not talking about Rome right now.
Yes.
We can talk about Rome at some point.
Yeah, in another episode and a little bit in this episode, considering how much the Etruscans did influence Rome. We're going to touch on Rome.
We'll touch on Rome.
Yeah, Roman history is going to rear its head.
Be patient.
We may even actually go. Honestly, it probably wouldn't even hurt to delve into a little bit into what happened with the Etruscans after Rome showed up. But that I digress. Let's get back on track.
All right, so we start, of course, with the origins of these ancient people. We actually don't know.
No idea for most historians.
No idea.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Okay, so there's some ideas of where they came from. Of course, there's
three main theories. Yeah.
Three main theories. There was one that they
migrated from Anatolia, I think.
Anatolia, yeah.
Yeah, from Anatolia, modern day Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then there was one that they were going by ships.
Yeah, the sea peoples that were thought to have caused the Bronze Age collapse in the ancient Mediterranean.
Ugh. Ancient squared.
Ancient squared, exactly. So ancient that the ancient Greeks saw them as ancient.
Yeah. And then the third one, I don't remember the third one.
The third one, and what's considered to be the most likely one because, you know, how language families work, is that the Etruscans were just indigenous to the Italian peninsula. Because that's the fun thing. So, you know, the Etruscans, they're in the Italian peninsula, and they're surrounded by a bunch of different peoples. There to the south, you've got Greeks. Yeah, you've got Greeks and Greek colonists. To the north, you've got Gauls, Gallic peoples. And to the east, you have Italic peoples. You know, what the whole peninsula is named after, you know, like the Latins that would later become, you know, the Romans that would conquer Etruscans.
That would just become everything else.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that all three of these groups, the Greeks, the Greeks, the Italics, the Gauls, all three spoke Indo-European languages.
Meaning they all, like had to have migrated, right?
Yes, they are all from the same initial group of migrants into Europe. Because, and mind you, Indo-European languages are basically every language in Europe other than Basque. And we don't know where the fuck Basque came from.
Yeah.
So that's how overwhelmingly spoken Indo-European languages are now. So think about that. Indo-European languages would go on to just conquer all of Europe. All of Europe would go on to basically all of Europe would go on to speak exclusively Indo-European languages.
Right.
So the Etruscan language,
they just didn't.
It wasn't an Indo-European language.
Yeah.
And the only reason we know this is because, of course, we have some written records of their language, which we will get a little bit more into later. But yeah, with the Etruscans, from at least what linguistic scholars will think is that they were indigenous to the Italian peninsula because, or at least they were descended from the first humans to inhabit the Italian peninsula.
Right.
Because their language isn't Indo-European, or wasn't Indo-European because it's kind of dead.
It's not kind of.
Oh yeah, fair enough. It's not kind of
it's
dead.
Not kind of dead.
Extremely dead.
It's very dead, very dead. And another thing, later down the line, before like a couple, we're gonna touch on this again, but then as a written language, one thing that they did, the Etruscans used the Greek alphabet as a written language. But that was like, I want to say
way later down the line.
Yeah,
when they actually started writing down their language.
Yeah.
Up until a lot of Greek influence, they were just
it was
just an entirely a spoken language. There was no writing system, or at
Kind
least
of
no
like-
writing system that we have an archaeological record for.
So kind of like how say, I know this is off topic, but kind of like how Japanese started.
Yeah.
As like just purely spoken, and then
How all languages start, really.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, most languages start, except for instances where it evolves from a language that already had a writing system. All languages start off as purely spoken.
I guess that is true. We've learned something new today, folks.
Exactly.
All right. Going back into the before they actually wrote down their things, back into, I'm forgetting the name of the period itself.
I believe it was called the Villanovan period?
Villanovan.
Yeah.
Correct. Let's just start talking about the Villanovan period. First things first. Actually, I'll let you start that.
Most of the evidence we have, for Villanovan period stuff, just generally culture and everything, is really how we get evidence for anything from a culture that doesn't or didn't write down anything, which is through burial sites. Burial mounds, tombs, whatever.
Basically anything we can dig up.
Exactly. So, for example, with Villanovan period, we know that when it came to their burials, they would cremate them. They'd cremate the bodies and put them into burial mounds. And because of the fact that we found burial mounds from that period with human remains that were ashes. So
we have their ashes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you find ashes, you test it, you figure out, hey, that's the same composition as a human bone. I think they may have cremated this person.
I remember there was something on, like, the things that they buried, or, like, cremated them in and, like, stored the ashes in.
Oh, yes, they stored them in urns. Bronze urns.
Bronze urns.
Yeah. Like, you know, they had a little bit of decoration on them. Nothing, like, super fancy. Nothing Hellenistic yet. It was...
This was before they had their glow up.
Yeah, this was, like, you know, this was the most purely Etruscan form of a bronze urn you could get.
And again, we're like...
Because they had no influence from outside cultures.
And again, we're like deeply... I mean, we're like pretty far back in terms of like the history. What you're...
Yeah, this is
like
1750 BC.
1750 BC.
Yeah, this is before Italic peoples had even reached the Italian peninsula. This is before the people that we refer to the Italian peninsula after even arrive. And then we get to, it says Orientalizing, but you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to call it the Hellenization period.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to call it. Because Orientalizing, I mean, yeah, you know, Orient is just an ancient word for East. And then becoming more, you know, just talking about them becoming more Eastern. But most people now, like, you know, they think of Orient, Oriental, and it's like, oh, that's just an old way of saying, you know, Asia, China, stuff like that. No. So I'm going to say Hellenization, because that gets the point across much better. This is the point where they meet the Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
They meet the Greeks. And now, all of a sudden...
Ooh, wow, there's all this Greek stuff. Like, you guys do things really fancily.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is really cool. This is really nice. So now, well, okay, late Villanovan period, just before meeting the Greeks, they start to get a bit more, like, sophisticated with a lot of their culture. Like, there's, like, you know, their settlements are starting to become bigger and everything. So now, like, you know, when it comes to burials, instead of doing stuff like just, you know, cremation, put you in an urn. Mm-hmm. It's you get to go into a crypt. You're being buried with luxury items. Because of these tombs, we get evidence with these nicer tombs, these late Villanovan tombs. We get evidence of actually them starting to interact with Greece and even with Phoenicia, because we have luxury Greek and Phoenician goods.
Would you say that about now is when they start using some of start doing some of the things like building some of the things like the aqueducts? That would you say about now, or
a little bit later, after a little bit more interaction with the Greeks? At this point, they are still very, very uniquely Etruscan. So, well, the beginnings of that kind of architecture do show up in this period, I suppose.
Okay,
but they don't start creating it just yet.
Okay, all right. They start
a little bit more interaction with the Greeks and their stoneworking, and then we get that.
We get into the Hellenization era.
Yay, Hellenization.
We get into the Hellenization. We start to see some of. Do we start to hear some of their like religion, or well, rather than religion, more
like Hellenization of their religion?
Yes.
I guess is a better way.
Yeah, because they had a religion before.
Yeah, they had a religion before. They had their own gods and everything, but yeah, their gods were very different from Greek gods. And at this point, they still remained very different from Greek gods, but they started to...
They had surface-level traits that were similar.
Yeah, surface-level traits that were similar, and as a result, Etruscans kind of started to be like, okay, yeah, this is kind of like our god, which, by the way, is a little thing that Rome would later do.
We're talking about Rome so much, I kind of want to talk about Rome.
We're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it.
We're gonna get to it.
But yeah, no, it's like that's something that Rome would later do as well.
Synchronization. Syncretization.
Yes, syncretization.
Okay.
That's a different thing. Synchronizing means like, you know, you're just copying it straight up. Syncretizing, what this is basically saying this is just like the thing that we have, just a little bit different. So, and what the Romans would do later on is like, you know, with say Celtic gods, they'd say, oh, hey, this is just like our god that we have right here. You just worship them in a different way. And then that would mean that the Celts now got to continue worshiping their gods. They got to, in the same way that they already worshiped them, they got to continue in their own languages. They could continue to refer to their gods like that. It's just that, of course, they're Romans now, they better be speaking Latin and calling those gods by their Roman names.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as they were concerned, daily life hadn't changed. And it's a similar thing with Etruscans when they were adopting Greek gods. But except the other way around. Where
it was less of them being like, okay, you're worshipping these gods. More like, okay, let's get some...
I suppose we're kind of already worshipping these gods. I mean, they didn't stop speaking their language, so they still referred to their gods as their gods, but like, they started to adopt some elements of Greek gods from their stories. Except for the aspects of course, the Greek gods being the worst.
For example, their head god was a sky god, correct?
Yeah.
Also a sky god, much like Zeus. However, he was not a massive cheater. He was not a chronic adulterer.
Yeah, he wasn't a chronic adulterer / rapist. Don't forget the rapist part. That's an important aspect there.
We're on a podcast. We can say that. It's amazing.
We are on a podcast. We can say that. I can say fuck. It's great.
You can say fuck. It's great. It's amazing. Editing Mekhi, show the clip of him saying fuck.
Oh yeah, I just remembered. Just to make sure, I am allowed to swear on this podcast,
yes!
Right? Fuck yeah. Okay.
Okay. And, you know, the other god, like the head, not the head god, but the wife of the head god was not bitter and jealous. Actually, the sky god, the head of the gods, who we would say the name of,
if we could remember it off the top of our head.
We're so sorry, y'all. Next week it'll be so like we'll be so studied.
We will be in a much better position.
We were like, we have this. We're back. It's so good, and then we didn't. So bear with us for just a week.
We are flying by the seat of our pants right now,
and it'll be fine. Anywho, the head sky god, he couldn't even like throw a lightning bolt or anything.
Yeah.
Like he didn't have like proper authority. To do that without the council of like
basically imagine a shadow government but for a pantheon.
That's so metal.
Honestly, that's basically what it was.
Yeah.
Like they called them the secret. Yeah, it was secret gods. That's what they were called. Yeah. So the secret gods. That's what they were called. So just imagine a shadow government, but for a pantheon of gods.
Like, I mean, I don't know what's better, that or a pantheon of gods that are like super petty. Honestly, you know, the Hellenistic one.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, Athena's my girl, but
speaking of Athena, I believe her counterpart, which I do remember the name of, was Minerva.
Yes, Minerva.
Minerva,
yes.
Who the Romans later translated into Minerva.
Yes.
They
adopted it. They just straight up adopted her as one of their own gods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Which once again, the Etruscans influencing Rome.
Yep.
Heavily.
We're gonna have so much of that. It's basically this is the Etruscan / Rome, but like slightly Rome.
Yeah, the Etruscans are like the prequel to Rome.
Yeah.
That's what the Etruscans are.
They're the first like actual place.
Yeah.
That like was substantial enough to where when Rome actually conquered it, it was whoa.
Yeah, like the Etruscan civilization was like the first major civilization in the Italian peninsula. And what I mean by major is more the fact that, like, you know, the Greeks, Phoenicians, Carthaginians, all them, they acknowledged that they existed and traded with them actively. Not really seeing them as like, oh yeah, that's a major player in the sea. Just
they exist.
They buy stuff from us, we buy stuff from them. They're pretty cool.
They're
Which
more
is exactly what Rome became, was they conquered the Etruscans.
They're more like an alien people that weren't like actively invading, but like were like, you know what? We're homies.
Exactly. It's basically like the same idea as how medieval Europeans felt about like India.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, we're able to like, it takes us forever, but we're able to, you know, go there, get some pretty cool stuff from them, They buy some stuff from us.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like it's an interesting place down there. Don't know much about it, but they seem neat.
Yeah,
they sound neat.
They're the homies for real. They're the homies for real. And then they had basically Hercules. Hercules was Roman. Oh my goodness! Yes. We can't stop without saying Roman.
That's the thing. Yeah, Hercules was Roman. Heracles was the Greek one. Yeah. But yeah, no.
They basically had Hercule.
Yeah, but the big difference between Minerva versus Minerva and, of course, Athena is that Minerva and Athena, explicitly in mythology, are virgins. Minerva
was not.
She fucked.
She, in fact, fucked.
And she fucked Hercules.
Yes.
Which was the Etruscan version of Heracles. Mm-hmm. Which, of course, the Romans called Hercules. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I just love that the Etruscans, they just didn't even have the middle vowel in there. It was just Hercules.
Yeah.
Hercules. But yeah, no, she fucked.
Yes.
She fucked.
She did in fact fuck. This is the whole podcast. Just us saying fuck.
I have so much power here. I can fully unleash my tongue.
It's amazing. It's truly amazing. Where are we in terms of time? We're in the...
we're still with Hellenization kind of stuff, because we still haven't even gotten on to... We talked about the religion. We forgot to get on to architecture.
Oh, yeah, the architecture.
Because by this point, the Etruscans started to actually adopt much more Greek styles of architecture, and Greek building techniques, all that. So here is when you start to see more, the Etruscans built aqueducts.
Yep.
They were the ones that built the aqueducts to begin with.
It was them first, not those other people on the Italian peninsula that start with an R.
Yeah, exactly. They got those from the Etruscans and then started to implement them, everywhere in their empire, because aqueducts are a really, really good source of clean water in the ancient world.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, because also, mind you, aqueducts were not a thing that the ancient Greeks made either. This was a very uniquely Etruscan invention. Yeah. They were influenced by the building techniques they got from the Greeks, of course. This was purely Etruscan.
They took the flow and were like, okay, we can make something, and then boom, made something completely brand new in the ancient world.
Yes, exactly.
Something completely revolutionary.
Yes.
Beyond any, the apex of what humanity was capable of at that point. Well, besides the pyramids. The pyramids don't count. Okay, all right.
There's a lot of ancient wonders from around that would show up around that time, where and pyramids and other things that were but aqueducts were a very important invention in the same sense as pasteurization is today. It's one of those things where it's important. Don't get me wrong, it's important, and I mean that today with pasteurization as well, considering it's the same idea as aqueducts provide clean drinking water through getting them, making it so that the source flows all the way down from the source, from whatever mountain or hilltop or whatever spring, all the way into the city and distributes it throughout the city to basically provide running water. Not that you can turn on and off like indoor plumbing, but running water. But it's kind of like the same sense where with pasteurization, I wouldn't call the figuring out that you can boil milk to get rid of all the germs in it the apex of human ingenuity.
Okay.
And fair. While aqueducts are a very different thing, it's building a megalithic structure to provide clean drinking water to an entire city. I wouldn't call that the apex at the time.
I was a little loose with my words.
Okay, maybe I would. Maybe you were right. Okay.
I was a little loose with my words.
Maybe you're cooking. You might be cooking.
Maybe.
You might actually be cooking.
We'll have a tier list. One of these episodes will just be us making a tier list.
It's just a tier list of inventions from different periods of history.
We'll stream that on the gaming channel. cut that out. Just cut that out before Bryce sees it.
Make it a what? No. You're kind of cooking here. Make it a Tier Zoo style kind of thing, where like we're talking about it as if it's a like there's a whole meta to it. It's like I really like what the devs did with aqueducts. Honestly,
they kind of cooked. That goes us tier. That clears. And then we get to like the pyramids, and then
it's like we talking about like Lighthouse of Alexandria. Yeah, I see what the devs' whole idea was here, and they was smart because Lighthouse is very used Lighthouse, adding lighthouses into the game in order to make in order to help ship players move into the harbor like that. Very smart on the devs' part, but. I don't know if I would consider it like the best that the devs have ever cooked up. So I think I'd put it like high A tier.
Editing Mekhi. Actually, no. People, because I'm keeping this in. People. This got so off the rail. I'm so sorry, but this is gonna have to be what this is. This is what the show is.
This is how it's always been. We got off track during the trial runs. Like this is.
We did.
Yeah,
we did. All of the trial runs.
Yes, all of the trial runs. We got off track like that.
This was always gonna be. Bear with us. Yeah. Anyway, especially this episode. The other ones will be like super sensational.
Exactly. What matters is that we move ourselves back on track to continue talking about the main point at hand.
Right. Which are.
And we haven't moved out of the era yet.
We haven't moved out of the era. Before we move out of the era, I kind of want to talk about
the years. Like we're never quite fully moving out of the years. So that's improved.
So, I do kind of want to discuss the politics that were happening. Basically, one thing that I remembered that the mother and daughter in ancient Etruscan civilization in society rather, was a lot valued. Would I say valued more? Would you say valued more? I don't know about
compared to Greek civilization.
Yes.
As in, women in general were allowed to do shit, as opposed to Greece, where they were basically just considered large children.
Yeah.
Because let's not forget. Ancient Greece was absurdly misogynistic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like on another level.
Definitely. Basically when they're like telling stories and like putting stories on things like pots and stuff.
Yeah. Another thing that the Greeks brought around, by the way, was the Etruscans started to copy like the pottery styles of the Greeks.
Mm-hmm. One thing is that This is kind of terrible, but the symbol for like taking someone by force, taking a woman by force, was the exact same as the symbol for like, all right, let's go
for marriage.
Let's go get married. The same thing.
That was Greece.
That's y'all's heroes, by the way. That's y'all's heroes. I don't know why.
Remember that one time when there was some Greek hero, Theseus, I think it was actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Theseus, or some Athenian hero, some Athenian founder hero, kidnapped Helen of Troy as a child.
It was Theseus and Pyrrhus.
I don't remember the other guy's name. He's unimportant. Theseus is the one that matters here.
The other one tried to kidnap Persephone.
That was going to fail from the get-go. But yeah, just the fact that they kidnapped Helen of Troy
when she was 12.
When she was 12.
And the plan was to keep her until she was of legal banging age.
Which, mind you, ancient Greece. So that was probably like 2-3 years from that point.
I can't believe I said that on something that's going to be broadcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Editing Mekhi, cut that.
For legal reasons, that is a joke.
That is a joke? Cut that out?
Yeah.
Cut this whole part out. Alright, Oh my gosh. But yes, the ancient Etruscans actually valued women a whole lot more because there were a lot more things that they could just do.
Yes. And it also did lead to the Romans seeing and depicting Etruscan women as
entitled,
arrogant, dirty,
spoiled. Yeah. Because they could own shit.
Yeah.
They could, like... I mean...
They were allowed to drink wine.
Oh, yeah.
Which Greek women weren't allowed to do.
Yeah, no. Because wine was very, what's the word? Sacred.
Oh, yeah, no. The Etruscans fucking loved their wine.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know your wine aunt? The Etruscans. All of them.
They're just all your wine on. All of them are your wine on.
Every last one of them.
I mean, that is an accurate depiction, because, like, they were, like, very, very, very into it.
Yeah, that was one of the things where, like, basically the best way the first thing that comes to mind for me to compare it to, minus, the actual impact it had, is, how much, actually, no, this is actually a perfect thing to compare it to. The Etruscans loved the wine they got from Greece, as much as the British loved the tea they got from China.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah,
that's the exact same, like levels of impact.
The only difference is that the Etruscans wouldn't have had the power to then, where if Greece said, no, we don't want to trade you any more wine, the Etruscans wouldn't have had the power to say, no, you'll trade me that wine whether you like it or not.
We're formulating a lot of stereotypes here. They're basically the wine on. They respect women.
We're formulating stereotypes of people that don't even exist anymore.
How do you feel about that? I don't know how I feel about that. I need to know how you feel about that.
The worst it'll do is harm historical discourse among the general public, but then again, how many people in the general public are going to be just talking about the Etruscans for no reason at all?
Exactly. They have to hear us first.
Exactly.
We're icons.
We are trailblazers.
We are trailblazers. Okay.
It's like Honkai Star Rail.
Our spot! Okay, alright.
I wish they were our sponsor, damn.
We'd be getting...
Anywho. We'd be getting mad money. Anyways.
We'd be getting money at all.
Oh yeah, the why not comment. Well, really, yeah, at the end of the day, the moral of that story is just that, yeah, Etruscan women had significantly more rights than Greek women.
Yeah.
And a decent bit more rights than Latin women. At the time. But yeah, we've been on this era for a while.
We have.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's potentially time to move on briefly.
Okay.
Because moral of that, basically with that whole era, that was the Etruscans coming to their height.
Yeah.
They weren't quite at their height just yet, but they were reaching that peak. And they were starting to adopt a lot of Greek culture, which is what they would end up exporting beyond their own borders. Well, not beyond their own borders, but beyond their own people.
Beyond their own existence.
Yeah, beyond just Etruscan people. That's what they would export to, I'd say, other peoples, but one other particular people that is important to this story, which is,
of course,
the Romans.
The Romans.
Yeah.
Speaking of, now we get to the era known as... I'm gonna cheat. The previous era was called the what?
We were calling that the Hellenization.
Hellenization.
Because it says Orientalization of the...
Okay, so...
Next one I think it shows on Wikipedia is like classicals, which we're already in the classical period in general.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah, so we're just gonna have to find, honestly...
A good starting point?
Yeah, so honestly I think the best way to start this off is just defining it by the 12 People's Alliance thing.
Right.
That I can't remember the full name of, I just remember it was referred to as...
12 Peoples.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, 12 Etruscan cities decided to come together and unite under a formal alliance. They were all effectively still independent.
Right.
None of them, it wasn't like, under one larger government. It was a case of they all united under one formal alliance just to be, united in that sense. It was
kind of like, would you say
it's like NATO.
I guess.
It's like an ancient NATO, and only for Tuscany. And nowhere else.
I was gonna say it's like kind of, but like even looser than like the 13 colonies. Like even looser than that.
Yeah, exactly. Because 13 colonies at least had like Continental Congress. They were just like 12 kings that all said, yeah, let's all united people. Yeah, let's all work together since we all share a common language and culture. But yeah, it was 12 independent Etruscan city-states, all ruled by kings, all united together under formal alliance.
Yep. And some of the things that they did in this period, would show up later in that other culture in the Italian peninsula.
Yeah. That other totally not that important.
Not that important. Amelia probably. What was I about to say? One thing is I don't know if it was exactly chariot racing, but I do know that like they had mock fights.
Yes. Public sport. The best way I can put it is public sport. Public sporting events.
Yes.
Public sporting events became very popular within this era.
Right.
So you'd have boxing, you'd have wrestling, you'd have chariot races. Everyone loved chariot races in the ancient world. Chariot races were the shit in the ancient world.
Exactly.
And in the Byzantine Empire after the ancient world stopped existing. But that's because the Byzantines were stuck in the past. Either way, chariot racing, the coolest shit. Basically, NASCAR is modern chariot racing. But that's besides the point. Everyone loves chariot racing.
You're right. I hate the fact that you're right.
Everyone loved chariot racing.
Everyone did love chariot racing.
Yeah, whether you were Etruscan or fucking Greek or Phoenician, Carthaginian, didn't matter. If you were a civilization that had cavalry in their military and had chariots in their military, you had chariot races and your people fucking adored that.
It was amazing. Shit. And going into kind of similar things, but going into their military, since this was after they got influenced by
the Greeks, yes.
They ended up adopting a more Hellenistic looking attire for their military.
Yes.
Editing Mekhi will put up a picture now.
Yeah. So it was like you got the bronze armor. Well, okay. For the aristocratic folks, you had the metal bronze armor, you had the spear, you had the shield, more akin to what would later become a shield of a particular Italian culture that totally is not significant.
Not significant right now. No.
Yeah. But yeah, a very long, tall shield instead of a round shield like you'd find in Greece.
And then,
but of course, they used phalanx formations as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they basically had hoplites with phalanx formations. So, you had your phalanx formation with your hoplites there with their shields and spears, and you had cavalry along the sides. Very, very effective military formation in the ancient world. Mainly because you could do the thing that is, as far as military history goes, is a tale as old as time. Make your foot soldiers run headfirst into the enemy while the cavalry goes to the side, around back, and just kind of flanks them. It just flanks them.
The good old flank tactic.
The good old flanking maneuver. It's still used today without horses. And
you also have to remember, the rich are the ones who are having the horses and stuff, where the poor.
They just had their clothes on, and they had their clothes and a rock.
They had a rock.
Maybe a sling to throw the rock.
Maybe the rock is like wrapped and they just beating the head out of people.
And maybe they don't even got a sling and they just throw the rock straight up.
They're stoning people as their military tactic.
Yes. I mean, to be fair, also a common military tactic in the ancient world.
That's also fair.
Yeah, if your civilization did not yet have bows, which especially by this point in time, a lot of civilizations didn't have bows yet, you had slingers.
Yeah.
You had people that just had rocks and threw them really hard.
Definitely.
And I mean, like a rock this big, thrown hard enough, that'll knock a man out like that.
I'm sorry, editing Mekhi. I need you to animate me throwing a rock, or like someone throwing a rock at someone and it just hitting someone in the head and dying. But, back to, we're in the era where they're like at their peak, at like a really high point.
They're just about at their peak at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, vaguely peak, classical period.
Yeah.
We have
what we've been in classical period the whole time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
again, 12 people. We'll just call it 12 people's era.
12 people's era.
Dang.
We're making up names.
We're making up names that historians don't even use.
We're trailblazers. We're the historians, Thaddeus.
Yes, we are. When we're in this room on these mics, we are.
This is my favorite thing. Can we do this every week? I know you were thinking about, maybe not. Can we do this every week?
We can try. Absolutely.
We can try. Okay, all right. Because this is my favorite part. This is my favorite part of the day. Right. The classical. We're in the 12 people's era.
Yeah.
12 people's era, where people throwing rocks. We got the Hellenistic armor.
Only for the aristocrats.
Because
see, they're important. Poor people? Nah.
Their government actually was set up similarly to. I don't think it was set up similarly to. Definitely not Rome's at the time.
No,
but
it was basically a lot of the city-states over time. Some of them did overthrow their kings, and after overthrowing their kings, they did similar things to what Athens did when it overthrew their king.
Yeah.
Which was establish an oligarchic republic.
Right.
So all the rich and powerful people, they get to vote, and they get to vote for people to represent them. Nobody below those people though.
Do you remember if women got to vote?
I don't remember if women got to vote. I assume not.
I feel like that's something we would have remembered.
Yeah, I feel like that's something we would have remembered if we saw anything about it.
I'm not gonna tell anything to kind of correct us if we're wrong, but we'll just go under the assumption that we're correct.
Yes, we'll go under the assumption that women had plenty of rights,
not voting.
But to be fair, like again, you could be a man and just not be an aristocrat. Decently wealthy merchant, but not an aristocrat, and you still can't vote.
Yeah. Poor. Actually, no, I'm not. That's not the worst thing that happens to the.
That is not the worst thing that happens to the Etruscans, because let's also not forget that at this point in time, the Etruscans do have control over Rome.
Yeah,
they have control over the Roman kingdom.
Correct.
Yes. Which, I suppose now that means we can actually talk about Roman history a little bit with this.
All right.
Because Rome, especially in the later days of the Roman kingdom, had Etruscan kings.
Correct. Had kings that were from modern day.
Probably, considering their names, both of their names had Tarquinius. I'm gonna guess Tarquinia.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna guess Tarquinia just based off of the name.
He's built different.
Yeah, the last three kings of Rome.
Two are very important for us here.
Two are very important. Two are very, very important Etruscans that ruled Rome. Mm-hmm. First, we have Tarquinius Pictus. Tarquinius Pictus is very important because he... you know how we've been talking about this whole time, how the Etruscans really influenced Roman, what Rome would later build, Roman architecture and the like. Yeah, that's because of Pictus.
Yeah.
Pictus built a bunch of aqueducts leading to the city of Rome. He built the Circus Maximus, which was the first major sporting arena in the city of Rome. The ruins of which are still you can still see in Rome today. He created the ancient Roman sewer system.
Right.
The first example of a sewer system in human history. What else was he responsible for? Oh, he was responsible for the beginning of the construction of the Temple of Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill. Mm-hmm. Which was a very, very large temple to Jupiter. Then,
can you give us a perspective?
It wasn't the largest temple to Jupiter. I know that, because that was in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. But it was the main temple of the Roman Forum. Mm-hmm. Like, it was the thing where, like, you know, there's the Senate, but, like, Temple of Jupiter was what was at, like, the very peak of the hill, looking down upon the rest of the city. It was basically meant to be the centerpiece of the city. Mm-hmm. That was the Temple of Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, still, very important temple. And also the fact that, because of it being an Etruscan that began the building of that temple to Jupiter, that would also later go to influence the building of Roman temples everywhere. I.e., they're all Greco-Roman now. They're all Hellenistic. What happened here?
It just popped up everywhere. It's just like, when did all this? Yeah. When did we get all this Greek stuff? Gotta also mention, I believe it was this king that was really, really, really not trying to go to war.
Yes. Pictus was also really didn't want to go to war, or really didn't want to fight the Etruscans, because he led 3 wars that Rome was in. He led the wars against the Latins, war against the Sabines, and a war against the Etruscans. Yeah. And he really wanted peace with the Etruscans, considering
he was one.
Yeah, he was Etruscan. And the Etruscans said no.
The Etruscans just were like, nah.
The Etruscans said no. So he was just like, okay.
That poor guy.
So he kept fighting. And he won. Yeah. Either way, Pictus, very good king of Rome. Very good king of Rome. He was one of the last 3. And he did so much that would just influence what Rome would be.
If someone were to retroactively look at Rome's kings in reverse chronological order, he would be one of the ones that would be like, like he'd be the benchmark.
Yeah.
For at least like the last couple.
Yeah, definitely the benchmark for like the last 5, 10. Yeah. 5, especially 10. Considering that his successor's successor was Tarquinius Superbus. Now, anyone that studies Roman history knows that Tarquinius Superbus was the last king of Rome.
To regular people, right? The very last king before they were like, okay, the Republic actually started, and then they started conquering everything.
Yes. And the reason he was the last king of Rome was because, well, he was a tyrant. He was very tyrannical. And the Roman people hated him so much that they overthrew him, exiled him forever, founded a republic with a senate and all, and then swore they would never have a king again.
So he was so bad.
Yeah, he was so bad.
They never had a king again.
They never had a king again. Not until Western Rome itself fell. At which point, Germans. Yeah. Germans came along and said, let's see, Odoacer came along. No, the Vandals showed up first. There was that kingdom. Then Odoacer came along. And Byzantine and Eastern Roman Emperor said, you can be king of Italy, and king of Italy. So now Rome has a king again,
Okay.
And then basically continuing from that point on until 1945. So after that, after Western Rome fell, Rome once again the city of Rome once again was under a king and remained under a king until, not 1945, 1946, 1947, when the modern Italian Republic was founded.
I bet Superbus was like, yes, I'm not the last one anymore.
Exactly. He's like, I'm not the last king to rule Rome. I may be the last king of Rome, but I'm not the last king to rule Rome.
That poor guy. Well, I say that poor guy. He was so bad that he was so bad that they conquered the rest of the Mediterranean.
Exactly.
He was so bad that they conquered the rest of the Mediterranean in order to be like, you know, we're good now.
Yeah, and speaking of though, too, post foundation of the Roman Republic, the Etruscan civilization and culture still lived on, because of course after this point, the Republic started to gradually grow outside of just Rome and ended up slowly but surely taking over the Etruscans.
They got one kingdom, and then they were like, they're fine.
Yeah, exactly. They got a couple of Etruscan cities, and they were like, and the Etruscans themselves were like, okay, that's not good, but they're a small backwater. What are they gonna do? They can't extend their reach all the way out to us.
Imagine Glasgow, Virginia, just suddenly turning out and saying, you know what, we're sick of this, and started conquering
conquers Lexington. It's like, what?
Huh?
Okay, all right, that was weird, but you're thinking okay, that was weird, but there's no way they can extend their influence enough and extend their power enough outside of that specific area that they'll be able to conquer the whole rest of Virginia.
And then they conquered the rest of Virginia.
Exactly.
The entirety of it.
Just the whole state. West Virginia for good measure, too.
Just because. No, it's more them conquering Virginia and then going out and then conquering going out West Virginia, then Maryland, then walking their way up to DC.
Yeah.
And just eventually the entire East Coast.
Yeah, exactly. But this was a gradual push by the Romans though as well. They gradually conquered all of the Etruscan cities.
Very much so. The classic thing, Rome wasn't built in one day.
Exactly. It's a very literal thing because not just, obviously, yes, you can't build a city in a day, but also because the whole idea of Rome really took its time in order to actually build a lasting empire like it did.
Yeah, for, the main thing, the Etruscans lasted, almost 1,500 years.
Well, over 1,000 years, honestly, actually.
Almost 1,500.
Oh yeah, almost 1,500, yeah.
Almost 1,500 years! And, Rome just kind of existed.
Yeah. And then eventually, Rome came along and conquered Tuscany. I'm just gonna say Tuscany. Just saying the Etruscans can be a mouthful. So they conquered Tuscany. Mm-hmm. And also, by the way, Etruscans is where we get the name Tuscany today, because where we get Etruscan is from Roman word Etrusci, which is why we call it Tuscany.
Yep.
But either way, they conquered Tuscany, and the Etruscans still existed. Them as a people, as a culture, their language, everything about them was still Etruscan.
Yeah, they were the first major thing that the Romans kind of conquered.
Yeah.
Entirely, but they didn't... Their culture still existed. They still just kind of existed just as part of, Roman... Yeah. As part of the Roman... It wasn't an empire at this point.
Yeah,
but...
as part of the Republic.
As part of the Roman Republic.
Yeah, and they existed for a few their culture and everything was stuck around in Rome as well for, a few centuries. The main thing...
And then everything,
changed.
Oh, my apologies.
Oh, yeah, you're fine. Yeah, the thing is that it was just a slow assimilation into Rome itself. after all the Etruscan cities had been conquered and everything, it was in about it was like a few decades. Yeah, no, the final Etruscan city was conquered the same year that that the First Punic War would begin. Rome's first war with Carthage. And it was about like probably a couple centuries after the final Etruscan city was conquered that all Etruscans and all Etruscan cities would be granted Roman citizenship. And then that was that. So every Etruscan was considered a Roman citizen. They were now Roman, and many Etruscans were already beginning to speak Latin anyways. But
helped
of course,
helped with conversion, honestly.
Yeah, but of course, Tuscany itself wasn't considered Rome just yet. Everyone there was considered Roman citizens, and if you were born Etruscan, you were born a Roman citizen.
Right.
But you didn't technically live in Rome, and that wasn't the case until Augustus. When Augustus came into power, became emperor, he then made it so that all Italian cities, the entire Italian peninsula, became just considered Rome proper.
Yeah.
And also, by that point, Etruscan language had already died out, and Etruscan culture, Etruscan god, Etruscan religion, everything had by that point fully assimilated into Rome, anyways.
Right.
Which was kind of the reason why he did it so that the entire Italian peninsula is now Rome, because all of the Italian peninsula had basically fully assimilated to Roman culture and religion and everything.
Yep. And again, we said this a lot during the. Wow, we've been recording for a while. Like an hour and 20 minutes. That didn't feel that long.
Yeah.
But we've been, as we've been saying, a lot of things that were Etruscan happened to just be assimilated into Rome's culture. They just kind of took a bunch of stuff, like the aqueducts, chariot racing, all types of stuff.
Basically, the Etruscan civilization is the big influence on Rome no one talks about.
Yeah, because everyone talks about the Greeks.
Exactly, but a lot of the Greek influence came from the Etruscans, because actually,
they got it. They're the middleman.
Yeah, exactly, they're the middleman, because we mentioned did we actually fully mention the Etruscan alphabet influencing?
No, actually, we didn't.
Exactly. So we mentioned, Etruscan alphabet was taken from Greek alphabet, Western Greek alphabet.
Right.
But what we did not mention, is that then would later develop into the Latin alphabet.
Right.
Which the Romans used, and is the same alphabet that we still use today.
Correct.
Or at least a form of it, because of course we have a few letters within the English alphabet that aren't within the English alphabet, and within other alphabets within French and Spanish alphabets that both we share an alphabet with both languages.
Yeah.
Spanish only has one extra letter in theirs, but yeah, we share an alphabet with both languages that has some extra letters in there.
I'm thinking of the extra letter. I can't think of the extra letter.
And with the little squiggle above it. That's considered a whole ass letter.
With the tilde.
Yeah, with the tilde. But the Latin alphabet we use that today. Most languages in Europe use that today.
Yeah.
Basically, in fact, the Latin alphabet is like a divider in Europe, really, between what countries and cultures were influenced by the Catholic Church and what countries and cultures were influenced by the Eastern Orthodox Church.
Right.
Because countries and cultures influenced by the Eastern Orthodox Church used a different writing system. Mostly Cyrillic as far as Slavic countries go. Eastern Orthodox Slavic countries use Cyrillic alphabet. Meanwhile, Greece, Eastern Orthodox as well, but they use the Greek alphabet.
Right.
Because that's where the Cyrillic alphabet came from in the first place.
Right.
And where the Latin alphabet came from in the first place.
Right.
But either way, we get our modern alphabet and the way we construct modern Western European languages today from the Etruscans at the end of the day.
Speak on it. doing amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Don't worry. This will be out.
I always try and tell people that. I always try and tell people about the Etruscans, and they never listen. You know.
They're basically the middlemen between Greek and Romans.
Exactly what we've been saying this whole time. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
We're keeping this in, right?
We're keeping this in.
Hell yeah.
Great work.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Don't worry, we'll keep it up.
Oh yeah, no, you already said that. I assume you're telling the truth. Unless you're lying to me, Mekhi.
I'd never lie to you. I'd never lie to you. You're my co-host. I can't do that to you. All right.
But yeah, I think that's about the full story of the Etruscans, or at least what of all we researched. So.
Yep. If we missed anything, be sure to like tell us. I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. Like email us. Slip a note under our door.
This will probably be up on YouTube. I don't know where on YouTube, but I will tell you as soon as I figure out.
Please do. And here's a question. Do we want to just figure out our next topic right now?
Let's figure out our next topic right now.
Our next topic now on the spot. Okay, so
we're in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, we're currently in the Mediterranean right now. So let's go somewhere.
Let's go in Asia.
Completely fucking different. All right,
Let's go Asia.
Where in Asia? I'm going to let you pick the place. I'm going to pick the time period. Where in Asia?
China.
China? Okay. China. That's a lot we can work with.
There's so much.
Do you have any specific place in China, or just China in general?
Just China.
Just
China in general.
China in general. Okay.
Or rather, I'm not opposed to anywhere specific.
Not opposed to anywhere specific. Okay, yeah, that was. All right. Right now, I'm in between either talking about something like larger history, like a Three Kingdoms period, but lots of complex politics there. If you want to delve into that.
Oh. Or.
Haha, funny tea stuff and talking about the history of Hong Kong. Funny, simple but funny tea politics, or incredibly complex dynastic lines.
Can we? How many hours can we go? How many hours can we go?
I mean, every day I have class at 11, so I can pull off staying 11 till close, or past close if need be.
I don't think we can stay past close, but I kind of want.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Because if we start, if we do what we did here, start at 6. Let's say that Three Kingdoms period somehow takes us 4 hours. We end at 10 anyways. So I think we could pull off Three Kingdoms. Probably getting sidetracked a good bit, but probably pull that off in 2.5 hours. Hong Kong we could pull off in easily half an hour.
Yeah.
Or not half an hour. Easily an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Not half an hour.
Half an hour would be great. Then.
Half an hour would be wild. That would be simplifying so much. Because the other thing too is that the difference here, we were able to cover 1,500, 2,000 years of history, but that's because we have very sparse written records.
We kind of just
Hong Kong would be covering. Well, when we're talking about we would be talking about British Hong Kong, so that would be covering 200-ish years, because we probably started in 1800 and go until the return of Hong Kong to China in 1997. So so that would be 200-ish years, but we have
lots of stuff.
Records.
We have lots of stuff that we can just pull from.
Yeah. So Three Kingdoms period is something that's dripped in mythology as well. So that's something where a lot of times it'll be difficult to separate fiction from fact.
Do we want the challenge?
I'm kind of interested in the challenge. To be fair, I wanted this first episode to be about the 100 Years' War. So,
that is the thing you said.
I'm interested in the challenge.
Okay, all right.
Let's Three Kingdoms.
All right, let's do Three Kingdoms then.
All right, we will talk about the Legend of Three Kingdoms period.
Wait, this is gonna be so.
It'll at least be easier to research.
That's true. That's true. Because there's loads of stuff on that.
Exactly.
All right, so our next episode is on the Three Kingdoms.
All right.
Because there are 3 kingdoms. in China.
Maybe
Since
China.
since that has a lot of mythology like
Mixed into
it, we can cover a little bit of it, and then we can like, of course, say like our opinions of like what is truly fact, what is truly fiction.
Yeah. Definitely. We can. Yeah.
We gotta,
I love our communication of just yes.
Yeah. We got this. Anyway,
Yeah.
that was that place in history in the Mediterranean, and like up until like the 4th century BC. About.
Yeah, roughly. We touched into 1st century.
We actually
AD,
did, yeah.
but that was solely because we mentioned Augustus.
We'll do the Rome episode. That'll be episode 10.
We episode 10 will be the Rome episode. That's our decision.
I don't know if that's a decision or not, but Mekhi will keep this in. Editing Mekhi will keep this in. All right. Would you like to see the editing process?
I do want to.
Oh no, we're not doing it today.
Oh, I see.
I'm not editing this today.
We'll see when it is then.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right. That was that place of history, Mediterranean. Back with the ancient Etruscans.
Mm-hmm.
I've been Mekhi Kirkwood. This is Thaddeus.
Yeah.
And we'll see you again very soon.
Bye-bye.